Hi everyone, Peter here from Flow High Performance, and in this video we will cover how much volume to implement in a hypertrophy training program. First and foremost, let's cover what exactly volume is. Volume refers to how much total workload we perform over a given period of time. Different training modalities use different metrics to quantify volume, meaning that we need to be specific with how we quantify it. For hypertrophy training, volume can best be calculated using the number of sets per muscle group per week. This is because muscle growth can be equally achieved across a spectrum of different rep ranges and loads, making each set of training essentially equivalent for hypertrophy gains. Therefore, we can quantify the amount of effective workload that is being performed via the number of sets for a particular muscle group per week. So how does training volume influence hypertrophy? Well, volume appears to be the primary driver of muscle hypertrophy, assuming sets are taken fairly close to failure. We generally see a dose-response relationship between volume and hypertrophy. This means that the more volume that is performed, the more muscle growth that occurs. However, it is unclear where this upper limit lies for when more volume does not result in more muscle growth. Furthermore, it should be understood that higher volumes increase the rate of muscle growth over a given period of time. This means that we can still achieve significant muscle growth from low or more moderate levels of volume, but the growth rate will probably be slower. So although we still don't fully understand how much volume is best for hypertrophy and how much is too much, it probably doesn't matter from a practical standpoint. This is because most trainees will be limited by other factors before reaching their maximum volume threshold. There are a few factors which are likely to limit volume before we can reach our maximum hypertrophy threshold. First is joint tolerance. Most trainees will probably experience some aches and pains in specific joints over time when volume reaches high levels. For example, the triceps may be able to grow well from 20 direct sets per week, but the elbows start to get sore when the trainees perform more than 10 direct sets per week. Therefore, this trainee is limited by joint tolerance of the elbows rather than the actual hypertrophic response. This concept also applies to all other joints during hypertrophy training. The second factor that can limit volume is systemic fatigue. Systemic fatigue refers to how much total workload a trainee can perform in a given week before they see significant reductions in lifting performance or experience illness. This is non-specific to the exercise modality, which means that it can be influenced by total resistance training volume, other exercise performed throughout the week, physical labor, and mental stress. Trainees are more likely to breach their systemic capacity before they can perform enough volume for each muscle group to maximize hypertrophy. And lastly, we have practical limitations to volume. Most people have limited time throughout the week to train. This may limit how much volume can be performed throughout the week before maximizing muscle growth. For example, if a trainee can only train 3 times per week, it will be very difficult to train with enough volume to maximize growth of every muscle group, without each session taking 2 to 3 hours to complete. So what practical guidelines can we establish from these principles of volume? The first is to respect your volume limits regarding the factors we previously established. This means we should try to perform as much volume as we can handle without any joint pain, without breaching our systemic capacity, and within our practical capability. This is going to be highly variable between individuals and can change significantly over a training career. This is because each individual has different lifestyles and will be able to handle more or less volume depending on their unique anatomy and physiology. Furthermore, trainees should allocate volume based on preference. Because we can never train each muscle group with optimal training volumes, we can distribute our volume based on the muscle groups that we want to emphasize. So more volume can be allocated to the muscle groups that we want to grow at a faster rate, and less volume to the muscle groups we don't particularly want to emphasize. This may be based on the muscle groups that are naturally weak and those which are well developed, or simply based on personal preference. And now we can implement volumes for our example training program that we will continue from the previous videos. Let's assume this trainee has no particular weakness or strengths, and they want an overall balanced volume allocation that is within their physical and practical limitations. So this trainee will perform the following volumes per week for each muscle group: 12 sets for the chest and back, 9 sets for the quads and hamstrings, 8 direct sets for the shoulders, 8 direct sets for the biceps and triceps, and 6 direct sets for the calves. We will now implement these volumes into the training program that we previously created. As we can see here, the volumes that we selected have been distributed across each exercise to make up the total workload for each muscle group. Each week uses the same number of sets for each exercise, except for week 1. This is because week 1 is a deload, where the goal is to reduce accumulated fatigue from the previous mesocycle. So week 1 uses around 60 to 65% of the volume of the other 3 overloading weeks of training. Now that we have programmed the volume, the next step is to prescribe the proximity to failure for each exercise. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you got something out of this video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already.